Hello, New York Giants fans, and welcome to a new edition of the Valentine's Views podcast here on YouTube. Please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. We have arrived at NFL free agency, Giants fans. Monday is the beginning of the legal tampering period, the negotiating period, whatever you want to call it. Starts at noon on Monday, and that is really when we'll start to get answers as to how GM Joe Shane and head coach Brian Daboll will solve some of the roster issues that the Giants have entering 2025, especially, of course, the quarterback position, which is the big question, the big thing. John Mara said it way back in January that it was obviously the biggest thing the Giants had to do is find their quarterback of the future. We know the Giants took a big swing at Matthew Stafford. That failed. And we know that in recent days, there's been a lot of chatter about Aaron Rodgers. So let's start there. Been sort of watching the news, talking to people as much as I can over the weekend. And the reality of it is it seems like, at least in my view, although odds makers will say differently, it seems like to me, Aaron Rodgers to the Giants is becoming less and less likely. The reality of it is that Aaron Rodgers would appear to have some other options. We know that the dominoes started to fall the other day when Geno Smith was traded from the Seattle Seahawks to the Las Vegas Raiders. The odds-on favorite to land in Seattle as the replacement for Geno Smith is Sam Darnold, who was with the Minnesota Vikings last year. And there are also a lot of rumblings that former Giant Daniel Jones, and yes, it's amazing that Daniel Jones could have an impact on who quarterbacks the Giants in 2025. But Daniel Jones, also a free agent, signed with the Vikings, kind of looked at as the fallback plan if Darnold moved on. But Daniel Jones has options. Daniel Jones could land in Tennessee with the Titans. There's a lot of chatter that the Indianapolis Colts would like to bring Daniel Jones in to either replace or to at least compete with Anthony Richardson, who has really struggled in his 2 seasons with the Indianapolis Colts. So all of that, of course, could lead to Aaron Rodgers having the opportunity to land with the Minnesota Vikings, who were 14-3 last season. And you have to be realistic. Why would Rodgers at 41 years of age choose a 3-14 team like the Giants over a playoff caliber team, that he might be able to put over the top, like the Minnesota Vikings? Provided that he isn't told that he's just a placeholder for J.J. McCarthy. I mean, there are other options for Aaron Rodgers as well. Pittsburgh Steelers could be an option if they move on from both Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Saw some chatter on Sunday afternoon that the Seahawks have even checked in on Rodgers. So, that he might be an option there, although I tend to think that it's Minnesota or Pittsburgh for Rodgers. But all of that means that Rodgers, whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, Rodgers might end up not being an option for the Giants. He might end up, in Minnesota or in Pittsburgh, somewhere where he'll have a better chance to reach the playoffs and add to his legacy that way. So where does all of that leave the Giants at quarterback? When I did my mock off-season plan, which I posted Sunday at Big Blue View, and if you haven't read it, please, go back and read it before free agency starts at noon, so that you have an idea, what I'm thinking in terms of the various roster moves that the Giants might make. When I did that, I ended up with Russell Wilson as plan A for the Giants in lieu of Aaron Rodgers, partially because, I came out harshly against Rodgers signing with the Giants a week or so ago. And honestly, I don't want to be a hypocrite and then turn around and say the Giants should sign Rodgers. So I went with Wilson, but I'm not crazy about the Wilson idea. That projections are that you have to pay Russell Wilson 37, not the quarterback he used to be, not really a guy that lifts his team, not really a guy you win because of anymore. You'd have to pay Russell Wilson. Projections are 2 years and 75 to 77 million, something like that. And I'll be honest, if I'm the Giants, I don't want to do that. I don't want to plunk down that kind of money for a player who really probably isn't going to be a difference maker in terms of a guy who lifts the Giants that far from where they actually were as a 3-win team in 2024. I would rather mine the backup placeholder type quarterbacks in free agency. And I keep coming back to Jameis Winston, who we know has said he would love to come and play for the Giants. And we know what Jameis Winston is. Jameis Winston is Drew Lock on steroids. We saw the ups and downs, the roller coaster ride with Drew Lock in the few games he got to play, after the Giants moved on from Daniel Jones. We saw that in 2024. Winston, look at what he did with Cleveland last year. A couple of incredible games, a game where he threw for almost 500 yards. But within that game, a bunch of touchdown passes and a bunch of interceptions as well. Really, really incredible highs, really fun moments with Jameis Winston, and some really awful, inexplicable lows. Higher than you saw with Drew Lock, lower than you saw with Drew Lock, to be honest with you. That's Winston in a nutshell. But for me, the way this is trending and the way that I've thought about this for a while now, there's nobody in this free agent class who really moves the needle. And this, for me, this is Rodgers included, who moves the needle enough to take the Giants out of the market for a quarterback in the draft. And I do mean high in the draft. Maybe if you're signing Rodgers, maybe I would say you could pass on quarterback at 3, if you have the option to get a guy that you want. But really, there's nobody else out there that would make me even think twice about grabbing a quarterback at 3 or making the move that I've been advocating for the last couple of weeks, which is trading up to number 1 and going ahead and selecting Cam Ward. If you can do that, I know how people rate Ward, and I know they say he's not as good as some of the guys that went in the first round a year ago, and I know all of that, but the other thing I know is there's tremendous arm talent in Cam Ward. Guys like Greg Cosell, NFL Films analyst who I've talked to and whose opinion I respect, and people around the NFL I know respect his opinion, think that Cam Ward is deserving of being the number 1 pick and think that there's a really high ceiling there. And for me, that's the answer for the Giants. That's the swing they need to take at quarterback, provided, of course, that they can get the Tennessee Titans to move down to number 3. And that, of course, depends on whether or not the Tennessee Titans are of the mind to take Ward themselves at number 1. Indications right now are that the Titans would be willing to move that pick. Titans can move that pick at number 1 and still get Abdul Carter, the edge defender from Penn State, or Travis Hunter, the cornerback wide receiver from Colorado. The 2 players believed to be the 2 best players, the 1 and 2 prospects in this draft who are not quarterbacks. I think that trade makes sense. I think that's where the Giants need to go all in. In the end, maybe all of this gnashing of teeth about who the Giants' veteran quarterback is going to be, whether it's going to be Rodgers or Wilson or whoever, maybe all of that gnashing of teeth is much ado about nothing, for the simple reason that the big swing, the difference making swing for me, should come in the 2025 NFL draft. All right, I just want to touch on a couple of other things before we call it a show here. Giants did make some small moves in the last couple days with some of their own players. Brought back tight end Chris Manhertz. They brought back punter Jamie Gillen. They got quarterback Tommy DeVito to sign his exclusive rights free agent contract. All small moves, but all important moves. Help fill out the depth chart. Gillen is a really good punter. Manhertz, entering his 11th season, really good blocking tight end, guy who's an excellent veteran presence in the locker room. So glad to see Manhertz brought back, glad to see Gillen brought back. Good move actually to bring DeVito back. Although, to be honest, you folks probably understand, probably know that I'm not a big Tommy DeVito fan in terms of what I think of his talent. It wouldn't bother me to see the Giants bring somebody in to compete with DeVito for the QB3 role. Maybe a guy that they might be more comfortable with if they have to play him at some point in the season. But DeVito is back. Manhertz, Gillen are all back. In terms of Giants free agents, the biggest name of, as far as Giants who are going to be hitting the free agent market, is, of course, Darius Slayton. Very, very slim chance, I think, that Slayton returns to the Giants. Seems like, he has said, multiple times, he's talked about the difficulties of his 6 years with the Giants. He talked recently on a podcast about the opportunities that might be coming his way here in free agency. Seen some reports that Slayton, to me, a good but nowhere near a great player, could be finding himself with a contract 10, 12, 13 million dollars. And I just don't know that the Giants want to or should compete for Slayton in that price range. I think Slayton really wants to see what it looks like on the other side. He wants to see what it looks like elsewhere. So I think Slayton is going to be moving on. But anyway, we start to get some answers to all of these questions, the quarterback questions, the questions about adding to the offensive line, the defensive line, whether the Giants are going to be able to find a number one cornerback, whether they're going to keep Jason Pinnock at safety, or whether they're going to pivot and go into the market and try to find somebody else there. So, and anything else the Giants might do. How might they replace Darius Slayton at wide receiver? Will they make any surprise moves, at other positions that we might not really have been discussing recently? We begin to find out on Monday afternoon. The signing period begins Wednesday at 4, and the truth of the matter is the signing period these days has become anticlimactic, because by 4 o'clock on Wednesday, we know all of the business that's going to happen, or most of the big business that's going to happen, all of the big moves that are taking place, all of the big signings. We know all of those things long before 4 o'clock on Wednesday. So keep it at Big Blue View. Check our free agency tracker, check our free agency hub page, check all of our coverage at bigblueview.com as we keep you guys as up to date as humanly possible on all of the goings on over in free agency over the next few days. And I will, of course, pop back on here on our YouTube channel whenever there is a move or a series of moves that are worth in my coming on here and chatting about. So keep it at Big Blue View for all of your Giants information over the next few days. And as always, Giants fans, Thank you for watching. Please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.